Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. I have a book haul for you today. I usually film these every few months or so once my pile of books is starting to get too big and I'm getting antsy and I want to put them away. I've been collecting these books like since November, I think is when I did my last book haul. I have basically not purchased much at all. I pretty much only bring in books for Finn, and I also only get books if I'm working a shift at the library and I just check the library friends section, like sale section, and that's it. And sometimes little free libraries, but usually just my little free library, which isn't getting much use right now at the moment. The other day someone donated like 200 kids books and I came back home with like 35 books for Finn that I spent like $8 on. So score. But for myself, in basically the last 5 months or so, I've purchased less than 20 books. So I'm not mad about that. So that is today's plan, to go through those books. And as usual in book hauls, I categorize by genre. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start with nonfiction and get those out of the way. I found Baby Catcher, Chronicles of a Modern Midwife by Peggy Vincent. I don't know when I'm ever gonna read this, but ever since having a baby and like learning about midwives, it's been like a buzzword of mine. Even though this is nonfiction, I'm very curious what this is gonna be like. I think this is just like short stories and anecdotes of one woman and her experience being a midwife. Could be really fascinating, could be really weird, I'm not sure. I then found the Oxford Book of Health Foods, The Science Behind Herbal Remedies and Nutrition. And I like this one. It has a lot of illustrations. For example, echinacea, an elder, and it has the, oh, someone left a postcard from Tucson inside. Growing up in the Slavic culture, there's pretty much a natural, holistic herbal remedy to everything. So I'm interested to learn more about different plants and what their medicinal uses are. I love the idea of going through this book, but like when in reality am I gonna actually sit down and learn anything about it? I don't know, but you know, I love having it as an option if I'm feeling that way. And then lastly, for nonfiction, I picked up The Cutout Girl, A Story of War and Family Lost and Found by Bart Van Ness. This is about an extraordinary true story of a young Jewish girl who took refuge from the Nazis in the homes of an underground network of foster families in Holland, I believe. And I have a few of these kind of stories on my shelves, nonfiction World War II survival accounts, specifically Jewish family or Jewish children being saved in some capacity or hiding. So I have a few on my shelves now, and I haven't really been in the mood for them as of late. Like, this is definitely a story that I would love to read and learn from, but I'm not really like currently in the mood for it, but I'm willing to add it to my shelf in that kind of stack of specific nonfiction of these accounts, and hopefully one day we'll get through some of those. The next two has a nonfiction and a historical in it, but they are a theme, and that is my bee book collection. So I collect books, any genre, any topic, doesn't matter, fiction to nonfiction and every kind of subgenre in between. I collect books with bees, honey, or something alike in the title or even on the cover, anything like that. And someone found this for me. It was The Sacred Bee in Ancient Times and Folklore by Hilda M. Ransom. This is a straight up like old school like textbook almost on the sacred bee, basically what the bee meant for like ancient times, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and all that. Very dense. I don't think I'll actually ever read this, but I'm happy to add it to my collection, and specifically on like the Family Farm honey store. I have like a little stack of bee books in there. If anything, this will be decoration, but I have also been known to pick up some nonfiction books that are a little out of my comfort zone with bees for a specific bee video, because I like to mix it up. And then I found The Bee's Kiss. I was about to say The Bee's Knees, but The Bee's Kiss by Barbara Cleverly. This is atmospheric, intricately plotted with red herrings. London, 1926. One war is over, another is beginning, and a murder is sealed with a kiss. So something to do with a murder mystery in London in the 1920s. And there is a tiny little bee on a flower right there. So that's why I picked that up. I'll add that to my fiction collection, which is right there. I usually actually film a bee themed vlog in April. That's not gonna happen this month because I dedicate pretty much the entire month to reading only bee books, and I film a vlog about that. But perhaps soonish, because I'm itching to do that. I like to knock some of those fiction and nonfiction books off my shelves and get them read. Anyways, moving on. The one random fantasy book that I found was The Lost Queen by Signa Pike. This is a young adult trilogy, I believe, and this is Outlander meets Camelot, a sweeping magical tale. Romance fantasy set in Scotland and has to do with warriors and druids, and I definitely don't read much fantasy, but I love a historical fantasy if I would pick it up. I also don't read too much YA, but I've heard nothing but great things about this, so I couldn't really pass this perfect condition book up, and I'll add it to my very small stack of fantasy that I own when I'm in the mood for it. Another really rogue one that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise unless I found it for 25 cents, is this tiny little novella by an author that I have not loved in the past. Frederick Bachman. This is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This is a short, teeny tiny little 70-page novella on a man who has Alzheimer's. And I heard that this book is supposed to make you cry. I totally cry in books, but Frederick Bachman books don't really do it for me like they do for other people. People have really emotional connections to Frederick Bachman books and like love the characters and love the stories. And I've kind of just thought that they were okay. My heart's not really being pulled when I've read from the past, but I'm willing to give this little novella a go. I have 3 classics to mention. I found Middlemarch by George Eliot. I don't know too much about this except that it's supposed to be kind of depressing. I know it's long, and I know that it is Shelley Swearengen's favorite book. Like, I'm pretty sure she has mentioned it in pretty much every video of 2023 of how much she loved it, which I love when someone loves a book and can't stop raving about it. This will go on my classic shelf, and at some point I would love to give it a go. I have not really been reading too much classics this year, which is disappointing because I love to sprinkle them throughout my reading, but it just really has not happened. I have to be in a certain mindset when it comes to classics, and I really also need to focus, and that is just not where my life is at the moment. I'm just kind of zipping through things, or I'm just reading easier stuff, not so much long and dense and heavy things with many characters and things to remember, because reading is sporadic these days with a little baby. So that's my current vibe, but I would love to get to that one day. I also found Hind's Feet on High Places, an allegory dramatizing the journey each of us must take before we can live in high places, by Hannah Hurnard. I have never heard of this book, but it is on Krista from Books and Jam's Christian nonfiction list this year, and I believe this is the June or July pick of the year, and I would love to join in. I read the Screwtape Letters, which was the earlier pick. They're currently reading The Hiding Place, which I've read and loved, and this is some other book, some Christian classic that I have never really heard of before. I couldn't really tell you anything about it, except it's a biblical allegory. That's all I know. And then lastly, I found this lovely little book, Pollyanna by Eleanor Porter. This is a children's classic. I would say probably maybe on the same lines of like Anne of Green Gables or Heidi or Secret Garden, like those kinds of reads about a young girl frolicking through fields. I don't know anything about this children's classic, but I'm happy to have scored this lovely read. It looks very springy with the rainbow and like rain shadows and fresh wildflowers growing in a field. So I may need to pick this one up sooner rather than later, perhaps. Let me know if you read it and loved it. And then let's end with historical fiction. I have quite a bit of a stack here. Start with 2 books that are set in the US. I kind of do it by location if I can help it. I found Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker by Jennifer Chiaverini. I have never read from this author, but I know that she writes a ton of books. I don't really know anything about this one, except this is a new historical fiction and it has to do with Mrs. Lincoln and her dressmaker. So there's that. I would love to learn more about Abraham Lincoln's wife and that moment of American history during like the Civil War time period. And I accepted this finished copy. I thought it was going to be an ARC, but it's a finished copy. Veil of Doubt by Sharon Verts. The author and publisher reached out to me to send me a copy, which was very kind. And I really haven't received much from publishers. I've not really reached out to any. And I've been getting a few more these days, but I usually decline because they're either books I'm not interested in or I have way too much guilt if I don't read the book. I'm already feeling it with this one because they reached out to me at the end of last year and I haven't read it yet, but I just can't like sit down with a physical book at all these days. So I'll wait until I can read this at some point. But I was interested because this book totally intrigued me. I like the historical time period. It has to do with Reconstruction era Virginia and about a young widow that's accused of murdering or poisoning someone, and it is gonna be like a legal fiction during that time period. It just sounds really interesting. I was totally sold from the premise, so I would love to get to this one sooner rather than later because I will just be having this weight on my shoulders for not getting to this. Moving on, let's go to Morocco. I picked up Tangerine. Tell me if you've read this and if you think it's a Gloria book, because my suspicion is that it might not be my kind of book. I do love that it's set in the 1950s in Morocco. I'm worried that this has to do with infidelity, but I want to know if you've read it and if you think I'd like it, because I could probably be convinced either way. Like, read it now, it's great, you'll like it, or Totally not a Gloria book. Skip. Next, I picked up Until Leaves Fall in Paris by Sarah Sundin. This is a author that I've heard good things about before, and I have this book on my want to read list. The only reason why I really bought it is because I needed to complete a order from Pango, and I wanted the free shipping, so I just added this book. I think it was only like $3. This is a typical World War II, probably historical fiction. Yep, Nazis march toward Paris, and an American ballerina, something happens with this ballerina. I have a huge stack. All of these books are World War II historical fiction, and I haven't done it yet, but I really want to do a vlog where I read every single chapter of these World War II historical fictions, rank them, ask your opinion, and get rid of a ton that I'm not interested in after reading the first chapter and keep only the ones that I'm truly intrigued by. So I'm just gonna add this to the stack here. We'll save that project for a different day, but I do hope to do that soon because I'd love to get rid of more, because there's no way I'm actually gonna read all those. The last 4 books are all set in the UK, and these 2 are historical mysteries, starting with Birds of a Feather by Jacqueline Winspear. This is the author of the Maisie Dobbs series, and this is the second book. I have Maisie Dobbs somewhere down there, I think. And this is the second book in the series, and I couldn't pass it up for 25 cents. So I snagged it, even though I have not tried Maisie Dobbs. I don't even know if I'm a historical mystery kind of person. I love mysterious elements in a historical time, but I don't know if I'm a historical mystery person, you know? So I really gotta try that out first. And this one I'm not sure about either, but I also couldn't help myself for like 10 cents, or maybe this was a little free library. The Locksmith's Daughter by Karen Brooks. In Queen Elizabeth's England, no one's secrets are truly safe. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I would love to try it. I want to expand my historical horizons. Then I found The Lake House by Kate Morton. I'm adding another Kate Morton to my shelf. I have The Clockmaker's Daughter and Distant Hours, and I think I had another one, and now I'm adding The Lake House, and I haven't read any of her books. I heard that they're a little long and maybe slow at points, and maybe many perspectives, which isn't my usual cup of tea, but I'm intrigued enough to try her books, and I've heard lovely things about this one. I think there's a movie adaptation, and I also recently saw that Chantal from Chantal Reads All Day loved this book, so I would love to give it a go. I'm totally up for being swept up in the English countryside, if that's what that book is about. I don't even know. Lastly, I might end with a book that I totally did not need to buy, but 25 cents. And what if I love it? I'm talking about the 3rd book in a trilogy, The Mirror and the Light. Brand new. I swear it's never been opened. I couldn't pass it up. I have Wolf Hall, I have Bring Up the Bodies up there, and now I have the 3rd book in the series. So I have a completed trilogy that there is a very good chance I won't enjoy. But I've heard so many people love it, so I'm willing to give it a go. And I'm just gonna keep this around until I read Wolf Hall, which will determine whether or not I want to continue the series or not. If not, I'll just sell those or put them in a little free library at some point. But that is my little book haul. Let me know, please, if you've read any of these books, what you think. Do you think I like them? Do you think I'm not? What would you recommend? I love the comment section of the book haul videos, because your comments do influence what I read and don't read. And thanks so much for watching as well. I will see you guys in another video soon. Bye.